Hi everyone, this is Trina from Akosmopolite, and thank you so much for joining me today on She of the Throne. I'm truly grateful that you're here listening to my podcast with me today. I'm truly grateful that I'm here because honestly, there was a point right before recording that I felt like maybe I just couldn't do it. But I'm glad that I stuck to it because this is important, not just for me, but for others, for the collective. And I have felt pulled for a few weeks now to record this during the new moon, this specific new moon. This new moon, super new moon at that, in Libra. This feels really auspicious. I have been sitting under the night sky for a few hours, connecting and channeling, sound healing, and setting space, creating space for this moment right now here with you. So I just want you to know that as you listen, as you tune in, you are tuning into my energy and into the sacred space that I have set for us and for this episode. Which thank you so much for being here and being a part of episode 1 of She of the Throne. That feels really, really good to say. This episode is my introduction to you. It is my story to share with you. And I do this to share more information about myself so that you can get to know me. And so that I can stand in my authenticity. And also just to speak truth, to speak up. It's taken me a long time to get here, where I am now. It's taken a lot of courage. Like I said, I've been excited all week, and then as the day neared, I didn't realize it at first, but eventually I did. A piece of me was a bit scared. And, that's good. It's okay. It's okay that I felt that fear. And I just had to tend to myself and tend to my inner child and just reassure myself that this is a step in the right direction for myself and the collective. And some of you may be wondering, well, you're saying all this, but why? And what's the big deal? Well, what I have to share today is not so pretty, right? It is about my experience with trauma, sexual trauma. And so those of you who have been in that position, that have been traumatized, that have been sexually abused, you will know where I'm coming from when I say that it is hard to come to terms with, it is hard to speak about, and it can take time. It can take time to get to where you are comfortable speaking up about it. And I want to let you know, okay, I want to let all of you know that I am speaking about it, not so that we can just go and wallow in our pain and wallow in my pain and relive anything traumatizing. No. I'm coming to you today and sharing my story to empower you, beautiful one. Okay? I'm sharing my story to speak up because for some reason this is a topic that is tiptoed around and has been hushed, and people seem to turn away when it's brought up. It makes people uncomfortable, and it's kind of hard to dive deep into this subject, but I want to share with you that in this podcast we are diving deep. Okay? There is so much to go into and really dive into and look at all aspects of this and why this occurs on the planet and how we can heal ourselves and why it's important to heal ourselves, to heal the masculine and the masculine and the feminine within us all, and to heal the collective masculine and the collective feminine, to bring balance within ourselves, back into ourselves, and externally on the planet. So, beautiful people, let's dive in. I was 28 when I found out I was molested when I was a little girl in Germany. Molested by a family member at that. I had clues throughout my teenage and adult life, but I misinterpreted the signs. Honestly, I thought the theme of the emotionally unavailable, emotionally unstable, emotionally unreliable, narcissistic, abusive boyfriends was due to my parents' shitty divorce and their shitty marriage. But I will say that their relationship did play a huge role in my old belief system and patterns. I'm not going to knock that out. And in fact, we could definitely cover that in an episode. How parents, marriage, their relationship, and their dynamic affects children. We can definitely cover that and go deep into that. But what I'm trying to say is that my parents' relationship wasn't the only reason that I kept attracting men with certain energy. And later I'd realized that I was attracting men with a parasitic energy. I was in my early 20s when I began to realize that there must be something that I really needed to look at within myself. I would say I think I was 23 or 24. It was the year 2011, and at the time I didn't realize that I was actually going through my awakening, my activation as a starseed. I was in a very abusive relationship with someone who is a narcissist. At the time, I didn't know this term. I didn't know anything about narcissism or the narcissistic personality disorder, or the sickness at that. This relationship was my hell. Before this relationship, I had never experienced anything like this. The darkness, the confusion, the pain, emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual pain. This person brainwashed me, and I believed everything he was telling me because I loved him and I thought he loved me. And when two people love each other, of course they have your best interests at heart, right? You trust them. So in the beginning, I didn't realize what he was doing. Slowly over time, he was basically rewiring my brain so that I would start to doubt myself and doubt my choices, my actions, my friends, especially my male friends. He started to accuse me of things. Accused me of being a slut, being promiscuous, and leading men on, and that really upset me because I was none of those things and definitely didn't like to lead any guy on. I perceived my friendships with these guys at university to be very real, authentic, or at least I was being authentic with them, So this carried on from 2009 until 2011. It only got worse, and just months into the relationship, he strangled me pretty bad. And it scared the shit out of me. Let's just call this guy Mr. Y, okay? Because I'm not going to give out any personal information. So Mr. Y, at least at the time, was 250 pounds maybe, and 6'6" or so. And I was about 5'2", about 130. And he was drunk and saying stuff that was confusing me and hurting me. And while he was in his drunken stupor sitting on our couch, he admitted that he gave me an STD, which upset me. It upset me so bad. I had never experienced that before. Nevertheless, I never experienced anybody knowing that they had one and, being intimate with me and not telling me about it. After he admitted this to me, I asked him to leave my apartment because it was actually my apartment and I had let him move in. And he refused. And then I told him that I wasn't asking anymore. I was telling him to leave. And he still refused. I tried to arrange a ride for him, and he got angry and came after me and strangled me, pushed me up against a wall and strangled me. And then he did it again. I somehow was able to get away, and I was somewhere near my kitchen, and he picked me up off the floor by my neck and was strangling me. I was able to get away. He eventually put me down, and I ran for the door and knocked on a neighbor's door and asked for a phone to call the police, and the police came out and arrested him. And I was traumatized. I was in shock after that. I went into a catharsis, I guess you could say. I remember laying on my bed and not knowing what the fuck to do. I called my mom, who lived about 2 hours away, and she came up there to get me. But after that night, I was in a state of shock for a while, and it was terrifying for the person you love and that you've trusted and brought into your home and shared your body with could and did do something so terrifying and horrific and hurtful. When he got out, he contacted me and told me he had blacked out, and I believed him. He had drank a lot, and I had heard of that before, so I actually believed him. Mr. Y was really good at expressing things and making it seem like he really cared. One of the traits of someone with NPD is their charm, or anybody with a sociopathic personality, I guess you could say. They're they have charm and high intelligence, and he had those two traits among many others that align with NPD. And so I believed him, and he comforted me. He said all the right things that, for me, someone who's very heart-centered and forgiving and kind, and the values that I have, that I had then and have now. You know, I truly cared about him, and I wanted him to get help. I thought he had a drinking problem, and I just thought that he was, this was a one-time thing, and that he just needed help with this drinking. So that's just the beginning, right? And that was in 2009. Well, eventually, over the next few years, the truth would come out slowly. Like, he didn't hit me or strangle me again for a while, maybe a few months or so. And then the next time he did it, he had another reason. It was hard for me to realize that something was going on with him because of how he would interact with me and the things he would say to me. And he was doing little things to constantly make me wonder if I was doing something wrong. And also he would say things to where I started to question my values and my beliefs and doubt myself. And so this gaslighting and form of manipulation and mental abuse and brainwash, it took a toll. And I was just in this state of confusion and doubt all the time. It's like I became a zombie and was constantly anxious and always trying to make him happy. Well, this relationship ended up being my catalyst, because before Mr. Y, I had not noticed the theme when I would get into a serious relationship. But it was because of Mr. Y that I got to such a low, to the lowest low, the darkest dark of my life ever, where I had completely just denounced my beliefs, my faith, my belief in a higher power. I was a very spiritual person even then. And I said, you know what, no more. I don't believe it. It's bullshit, because I'm a good person. And this is happening to me? Like, how is this possible? If God loves me, and if God is real, why would he allow this to happen? So, I said F you to the higher power, and I was in a state of bitterness and sadness and depression and anxiety, and I didn't even realize it. I didn't know I was depressed. I didn't know I had anxiety. I didn't know a lot of things. I just know that I was experiencing stuff, and it didn't feel good, And I just got to a point where I remember saying, Trina, you know what love is, okay? And you give this love to this person, and you make choices from love, for this person, but that person is not doing the same for you. The way you feel right now, do you really believe that this feeling comes from love? That it's a feeling that someone would feel when they're in the energy of love or around someone who loves them? And I was like, well, shit, no, it's not. This is not love. I don't believe this. And even though I had not dated anybody yet that reciprocated that love to me, I just had this deep knowing that this just cannot be love. And this cannot be the reality of love. This is something else, and I don't like it. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. So that was kind of like a little flicker of light, of awareness in my experience. And that happened in 2011, okay? And that was when I started to go through my awakening, and I was having really vivid dreams at the time and receiving songs. I was receiving lyrics to songs, and I'd wake up and sing it into my voice recorder or write the lyrics down. I didn't fully understand it, but it was magical, and I didn't want to forget it. And I also started to feel more creative and wanted to write, and it's actually when I started my blog, Akosmopolite.com. Other things happened that year, but it was also when I started to wake up and pay attention to how I felt. I started to pay attention to how I felt and how the energy would change. Like, I paid attention to how I felt when I was outside, when I was around other people. Like, I went back to school. I had taken off a year because of the abuse that was going on in my relationship and the stress and everything. I took a year off and then went back, and I went back the winter of the fall semester of 2010 and spring of 2011, and graduated in the after the spring semester. And so, I would pay attention to how I felt when I was around certain people at the university, strangers in a store or at the bus stop, or and then when I would walk into my apartment and be around Mr. Y, I would notice a shift. I would notice that I felt happy and actually felt alive and inspired. And then when I'd go home, I just felt everything drop, and I felt just like low, and like I got drained of energy, or like I couldn't be happy around him. And so that was another cue for me that something was off. I reached a point in that year where, even though I had given up on my faith, I just got to a point where I knew that I didn't want this reality anymore. I didn't want the reality that I was in. And I remember laying on my couch in the living room and just whispering into the air, just whispering to whoever would be listening. I said, if you are there, if somebody's there, help me. If this is not where I'm meant to be, help me. And after that, everything changed really, really fast. I kid you not. Within the next few months, I was able to get away from this person and moved back, quote unquote, home. I say that because I don't really consider this place my home, but I moved back to southern Indiana and back into my father's home to just start over, to heal, and to figure out what to do. And that was the beginning of my healing journey and my full-on awakening. So I'm from that shift of people and starseeds that were activated in 2011, 2012. And it was a very rapid, high vibe, intense awakening, ascension process. It was amazing. It was wonderful. But it was through this that I was able to start reflecting. And I thought, like I said earlier at the beginning of this, that, my experience with Mr. Y and my 3 previous boyfriends, that this pattern had to do with my parents, so that's where I started. Sat down with my parents and asked them questions and why they did certain things and why their divorce went the way it went, because I wanted to know what I needed to do to heal myself. And I told them that. I told them that the fact that I got into a relationship with Mr. Y and he had these characteristics, the fact that I attracted this person and stayed with this person and didn't fully understand what was going on and allowed it to brainwash me, and I forgot myself. I didn't know who I was. I didn't believe in myself anymore. I didn't trust myself anymore. I was like, I said, your relationship affected me, and I must have some beliefs. I have wounds too. Like, because of that, I was affected, and I've been attracting these men that are unhealthy. So that's where it started, and it was a good place to start because it's still very real, right? So that was like one of the main clues that something had happened, but I thought it was solely related to my parents. Well, around 2012 or 2013, another huge hint was when I was smoking some herb and I heard a voice say, let's just call this person, Mr. X. So I heard a voice say, Mr. X molested you. And, I freaked out. I mean, nobody was around me. So who the fuck was talking to me, right? But at this point in my life, I knew that I had some kind of gift where I could hear. I wasn't ready to fully accept this gift, and I struggled with it my whole life, and that is clairaudience. And I had always been afraid of it, so at this time, when I heard this voice say this to me, I wasn't too happy about it, and I was scared. And I told it to leave me alone and get out of my space. I didn't hear this voice again. But I convinced myself that it was just some kind of entity trying to mess with me and scare me. So I just decided to do some yoga and deep breathing because it's pretty fucking amazing after you commune with Santa Maria, is how I like to call her. That was another clue, and I totally threw it out the window. Well, things would start to change. Well, after my awakening and activation in 2012, I would give love a try time and time again, a few times. I would open myself up to 4 individuals over the years from 2012 to 2015. And I would see the same pattern in different forms, but pretty much the same energy with these 4 guys. And I just kept wondering, after doing all of this healing work on myself, why? Like, how can this be? And it would become very frustrating at times. Because, actually you don't know, but in 2013, I went over to Italy to do this creative project with a friend. And things didn't really go the way I thought they would. She and I had some differences, and at that time, I found out about Charles Virtue. I didn't know about Charles Virtue or Doreen Virtue, but some soul sisters at the time that I had met on Instagram were talking about Charles Virtue. And I found out that he was doing his first ever master intensive practitioner course in Italy. And he would be, touring with his class to certain cities. And I just knew I needed that. I was like, I need that. I don't know what it is exactly. I don't know what, but I feel called to do it. And I was able to manifest this and join this master intensive course. Which was amazing and changed my life and helped me accept myself even more, because it was the first time in person I was able to meet and be around other individuals, other souls who were like me, who were intuitive, who are healers, who have gifts, whether that be clairaudience or clairsentience or claircognizance or something like that. Some of them were energy healers too. And it was like the first time that I had a sense of feeling at home. And it was amazing because I got to learn how to work with the angels, and I really, really put a lot of effort into that so that I could reap the most from it, asking the angels to heal me from my past, to heal me from my time with Mr. Y, to heal me from my past with my other exes, just to let go, cut cords and everything. And so much healing took place. It was amazing. It was transformational to shed these layers that were not of myself, to transmute them. After that, I came back to the U.S. and, months later after I returned, I met someone and thought that this was going to be it. But eventually he started to show the same signs of just this theme, right? This theme of like a man with anger, like anger problems, not knowing how to express anger, having emotional wounds that weren't being attended to, weren't being healed. It was just the same theme of a man who was spiritually unconscious and not wanting to take the time to do the inner work. And it was worse because this individual was pretending that he was doing that. He had a whole fake personality online. Anyways, so I don't want to get caught up in details of, past relationships. I just want to say that even after I worked on healing with the angels and starting work with crystals, I noticed that there was still something, especially after this individual that I'm speaking of, that I got involved with, and he had the fake personality online. I started to look deeper, and I realized there was just this energy, and it was the same energy that I kept coming up against in these men. And then I started to wonder, is this an entity that I'm dealing with? When I left him and I came back home to southern Indiana again, I vowed that I would stop being scared of my gifts. I would stop being scared of the fact that I can feel and sense and hear entities, and I vowed to connect deep into myself, deep with the earth and with the higher realms. And that's exactly what began to happen. I began to connect really deeply with Mother Nature and myself, and that helped me connect with my guides and my gifts, and for me to understand them. And this was in 2015. At the same time, I also had wanted to have the opportunity to drink the tea ayahuasca. I had found out about it in 2013 or 14, and I set an intention. I told the universe that I felt very called to it. I didn't know why. Like, I had never heard of it before, but I knew I needed it, that it would be right for me, and that something about it that I felt like I knew it. And I wanted to feel my connection to my star family again. And I felt like this would help me. So I set an intention and then I let it go, And in 2015, I had the opportunity to do this. And the opportunity ended up being on Mother's Day weekend in 2015. My very first communion with Mother Ayahuasca was amazing on so many levels that even to this day, it's still hard to put things into human words, into human language. But this day, this moment with Mother Ayahuasca would be one of the huge signs for me to let me know that something else was going on within me. I had a profound visual experience of my sacral chakra at some point in my ceremony with her in that first session. Repressed energy, and it's like this profound experience was like a combination of seeing the repressed energy along with mirroring of energy from another individual in that ceremony. So this particular experience during that ceremony, because I had many experiences, there were so many other visions and so many other messages and stuff, but at some point in this ceremony, I had a vision within my mind's eye. It was lit up with like 2 to 3 shades of orange, all these different shades of orange, okay? And I could see like these naked bodies folded into one another everywhere. Like literally my whole vision was taken up by this. My eyes are closed, but I could just see this just everywhere within. I just saw these different orange colors, and these bodies that were kind of like contorted, but it was like they were folded around each other. I mean, to be honest, it almost looked like it was just a bunch of bodies doing 69, but everywhere, just a bunch everywhere. It's so hard to explain. And I felt and knew it was sexual desire, and knowing that made me extremely, extremely uncomfortable, like very uncomfortable. I say that for a few reasons, or at least my surface awareness was that I was uncomfortable about this sensation and vision because I had been celibate. And so, the thought of seeing these naked bodies and like feeling sexual desire, I didn't understand what was going on. And so I began to have paranoid thoughts, and I thought that the ceremony facilitator, which we called a mestre, I began having these ego thoughts blaming him. I was thinking that maybe he was like trying to trick us with his chanting, because he was chanting in Portuguese. So I thought, oh shit, this man is trying to seduce us. Like, I don't know Portuguese, so he's, and he knows that, so he's probably saying some kind of weird ritual thing. I don't, my ego was going wild with this, guys. Let me just tell you that. It was, so I was thinking I shouldn't trust him. I was just having all kinds of ego thoughts. And as I tried to relax, I began to perceive the energy further. I was reflecting on events from the days prior to this ceremony where I actually got to hang out with this individual, the facilitator, the mestre. And I realized, oh, his sacral chakra is blocked. And once I said that, I heard a voice say, this is true, but what you see in him is also in you. And as I heard that voice say that, I watched as energy from me flowed towards him and blossomed into this huge orangey flower around him and above his head. And the energy then bounced off him and came right back to me. And I just, like, in this experience, I just was like, whoa, oh shit, that's so true. And I was just kind of like mesmerized by this visual of the energy being reflected back to me through him. After that visual, I noticed that Mother Ayahuasca wanted to take me down into darkness to explore something very difficult emotional wise. I didn't really know what it was, but I could feel it. Like, I could feel the resistance in myself, and I knew that it was going to be scary. Like, I could just feel it. I literally had the feeling that it was something heavy, scary, and I just felt unprepared. Like, I did not want to see it. I didn't know what it was, but I could just feel resistance, and I said no. Because by this time I was having an experience where I was communicating and interacting with beings, with guides, and they had been explaining energy to me and my gifts and everything. So when I felt the shift in my experience with Mother Ayahuasca to where she wanted to show me something and take me down, like, that's what it felt like, she was going to take me down, and I didn't know where. That's why I said no. I felt like I had control. I could make it stop. And I took my consciousness elsewhere. I took my focus elsewhere. The rest of my experience with Mother Ayahuasca that day, my very first session, it was amazing and activating and just full of confirmation of my presence on this planet, my healing gifts, and my intuition. It was such a remarkable experience and so confirming and life-affirming for me that I was in a state of bliss, awe, and tears for 1 to 2 to 3 weeks after. I don't even remember, but you can definitely check out my video on it. I have a video where I share my first ayahuasca experience, and I will provide that link for you guys if you want to listen or watch that anytime later. But after that first session with her, I didn't really question what it was that she tried to take me down to, because I was so focused on the magic that had happened and the activations and the confirmations of my healing gifts, and that I was a starseed. I was shown some memories and things like that. So I was just in this state of awe and bliss and doing a lot of painting and didn't think anything of it. But I did notice that I was noticing that my sacral felt blasted open. Like, I was noticing that I was experiencing feelings of desire, arousal, and I was starting to notice that a lot of different guys were trying to talk to me, which is unusual, or at least unusual for me. So I was like, oh shit, she opened up my sacral chakra. That I did notice that, but I didn't think anything of it about the scary things she wanted to show me. Well, months later, when I sat with Mother Ayahuasca for the 4th time, this was the most difficult session I had with her. I had about 1 or 2 other ones that were kind of difficult, but this one was my very first one. In this session with her, I saw a really, really fuzzy view of a child being taken advantage of. And the vision caused me to feel extremely uncomfortable and upset. But I also experienced my spirit out of my body, as often that's what would happen with me when I was with Mother Ayahuasca. I found myself sitting with my guides, like at a round table with others in a higher realm. I looked down at this vision, like I was perceiving it as me looking down at what this is happening of this child. And I felt so much compassion and empathy. My physical body on earth, was sitting in the room and having the session with others that drank the tea, and my body was burning hot. Like, I began to see, like, my vision fill up with these red, orange, and yellow triangles everywhere, and just blinking like warning signs. And I understood the message. It was like, hey, danger, need to abort, need to purge. But my spirit was not in my body. My physical form felt extremely heavy. And I was experiencing the boashera, which is what we like to call the force of the tea. And it was so strong. So I could not get up at all to vomit or use the bathroom, which is very, very normal. It's regular, okay? When you drink the tea, she's a purgatory like other plant medicines. They help you purge. They help you purge old energy. So since I couldn't get up, I just commanded my body to purge this grotesque energy via sweating. Like, I was like, well, I can't get up, but I can make myself sweat. That's still a form of purging. It's, if I can just get this energy out through my pores, through my water, through my sweat. So that's what I did. I commanded my body to purge through sweating. So I began sweating through thousands. Every fucking single pore that I have, I immediately began releasing sweat. It poured down upon me as if I was standing outside in the rain. I kid you not. It was just like, it was pouring down from my scalp, through my hair, down my face, down my chest, my stomach, my arms, my pits, my thighs, my legs, my feet. I was just, literally just felt water just washing down over my body. And it was my sweat. After that session, I kept pondering on who that child was. I kept wondering, why did I see that vision? It felt very complicated for me because as a healer and with the gifts I have, I tend to feel others' illnesses and experience some of their experiences. I can even see pieces of their lives at times. So sometimes I tend to merge with people or blend with them, and usually I'm able to tell if it's someone else or not now that I'm more anchored in my truth and knowing of my gifts. But at the time, in this session, and after that session, I was very confused. Especially since I was still trying to navigate and understand the nature of Mother Ayahuasca. In my second session with her, I had invited someone that I had met on YouTube. I invited her to come join me in ceremony with the others, and when in that session with that person sitting next to me, most of my experience that time was just me anchoring in light and holding space for her. And I even caught glimpses of her experience. So consciousness merges, it's shared within ceremony at times. So I was just not sure who I saw in that session when I saw that child. I didn't want to make any assumptions, but it disturbed me deeply. And I kind of felt like maybe it could be a family member. And like I said, I'm not giving any personal information, but I did think it was a family member. To this very day, I'll be completely honest with you, I'm not sure. After that ceremony, there were other times, I can't remember, but it was very brief, that I would start to see a child's room. And I would see like a cradle-like bed and child and baby fixtures on the wall, decorations. And the image would always come to me really fuzzy, though. And so I continued to wonder why I kept seeing this room, why I kept seeing things about a child. I wasn't sure if it was linked to the child that I saw in that fourth session, or if this was something separate from that. So I shared with you all that I communed with Mother Ayahuasca 2 times a month. This is while I was also in yoga teacher training. There are maybe 3 classes during training that really stuck out to me, because during certain practices, I had information, visions, bodily sensations, and emotions come up. During one such practice, it was called the Dolphin Breath, okay? Our teacher laid out like all the details about this practice. She let us know that this could be very pivotal for us, that we'd access memories if we needed to. She more so put emphasis on, stuff that happened maybe back in the womb, stuff like that. She didn't really say that something traumatic could come up, but she did say anything that's repressed or needs to be released that got stuck in the body will come up. So she went ahead and forewarned us about old energy and old emotions. And we all laid down inside the yoga studio and we followed her instructions on how to lay down and how to do the breath work. And we're all laying there next to one another and doing this breath work, right, for the dolphin breath. And the air began to fill with hysterical laughter, crying, moaning, like all sorts of sounds, because that's exactly what will happen when you do the dolphin breath. You are literally oxygenating your body so much that is how it is able to release old emotions and also bring pleasure to you. Like, that's why some were breaking out into hysterical laughter, some were moaning, and some were moaning from pain, from repressed memories coming up, but some were moaning because of just, it felt so good, their body getting all this oxygen. And then of course I heard crying and screaming, even and groaning, and nothing was really happening with me, but I was like, well, I'll just keep doing this. Let me just keep breathing. And eventually, my hips began to jerk off the ground. And it scared me at first. And I almost stopped doing the breath work, but I kept going. I kept doing the breath work, and my hips just kept jumping off of the ground. And then I heard the word rape, like whispered to me. Just like this. Rape. And I freaked out. Like, again, I'm like, what the fuck, And then, like, my mind started going crazy. Like, why the fuck did I hear that? Why would I hear that? Did I rape someone? I'm so confused, like, my ego was freaking out. The next thing you know, my spirit left my body again. And once again, I'm sitting with a council at a table in a higher realm. And I'm looking down. So I'm looking down, but I no longer see my body. Like, it's like when I look down, I don't see me in the yoga studio with my yoga sisters. I'm aware that my body is there and I can still feel it, but I also am experiencing myself sitting at a table with beings in a higher realm. And when I look down, I am seeing Mr. X, who is the person I mentioned previously when I said that when I smoked herb, I heard a voice say, Mr. X molested me. So I'm looking down and I see this person. And I was just shown in a way that is really hard to explain in words, but I literally was able to see, like, visually see and feel and perceive energy. I was shown his wounds. I was shown this person's wounds and his insecurities. I was shown that he has a lot of confusion and pain. And because of his insecurities and illness, because of his wounds, he needed to feed his ego. And I was the one used in this sick act to feed his ego. I didn't feel human emotions or attachment as I watched this, as I watched his wounds play out for me to understand, okay? Because I was in a higher realm, I was able to see it from a higher perspective. I felt a grand knowing and understanding, and instead I felt empathy and compassion for him. I was told and shown how this affected my trust, how it affected my trust with men in relationships. And all the while I'm being shown this, my hips, they're still jerking involuntarily off the ground, okay, as the information streamed in. And then eventually I came back to my body. When our yoga teachers instructed us to come back to the present moment and to come back into our bodies, I was pretty disoriented and upset. I did not want to share my experience in our circle at the end of class, because that's usually what we would do. We would gather in a circle and share our thoughts, our feelings, our experiences of the day, and just hold sacred space for one another, our little sisterhood. And I couldn't do it. I didn't know what to say. But after that practice, I was not the same. I just wasn't. It became so hard to focus on anything. It was hard to focus on task and my duties at the healing center, because that's actually where I was at the time. At the time, I was living and serving at this healing center, going to yoga teacher training, and drinking the tea twice a month. And once this experience with the dolphin breath happened, I just it brought up all these emotions and feelings and information. And it was brought up in such a different way compared to Mother Ayahuasca, but yet it was still parallel to what was coming up with Mother Ayahuasca, that it was like I could no longer wonder, but at least the information that was coming forth, it was still along the lines of what I was being told with the dolphin breath. And I had a hard time trying to figure out how to process all of this. I began to feel emotions come up. Fear, anger, like extreme anger. I had never experienced certain thought forms before until then. I literally remember sweeping the kitchen one day, and all of a sudden feeling anger and saying in my head, as if I was talking to Mr. X, and saying, "How could you do this?" And I was like cussing him out. And then I just imagined me running over him with a car. And I had never thought of doing that ever to someone before. And, that kind of scared me, that I was having these thoughts. And sometimes I just burst into tears out of nowhere. Like, I would have to, leave the room I was in. If I was in the middle of doing something at the healing retreat, I'd run to my room real fast and just throw myself on the bed, and just burst into tears. I just had a lot of emotions come up, and confusion and frustration and pain. It was a lot, and it was confusing. So that was another significant moment in 2015, where I was being shown my repressed memories. Another significant experience was in yoga school again, and it was during lessons on Mandukasana, which is frog pose in English. To do this asana, you have to lie on your belly, and your legs are spread as far apart as possible. It's like if you first were to stand on your knees, just get down on the ground and kind of you sit on your knees and then lean forward, and then you start to spread your knees far apart, and you try to spread as far as possible. It's a hip opener, okay? Well, I remember being shocked that I could not even open my hips as much as I thought. I really thought I would be able to spread my legs really far because I've always been freakishly flexible. But I just could not get my cervix area. I just could not get my groin area as close to the ground as possible. I was wincing in pain. I was it was hard. It literally felt like, I don't even know how to describe it. There was this sensation in my hips, like they were locked. I just tried to find a good place to ease into and breathe. And when I found a good place, I just began breathing. Of course, right? That's what you're supposed to do when you do yoga. And as I was breathing, I felt frustration. I felt frustrated that I couldn't do it. I felt frustrated that my yoga sisters could do it. I was frustrated that I thought I could, but I couldn't. And then I was flooded with emotions. Some that even to this day I cannot even describe to you. I began crying, and as sadness welled up and the tears are dripping down onto the floor, I had thoughts, memories of my past with Mr. Y, the one ex that I went into more detail about how he abused me and brainwashed me. I had memories of him. Memories flooded my sight and my body of him abusing me, physically, because he would physically abuse me. And memories flooded me of our confusing sex, how I never felt connected to him when we were intimate, and how he began touching my body out of his fear-based reality, rather than touching me with love. I cried at how another ex-boyfriend, the other one that I told you about, where he had to have a facade online, where he would get upset with me when I expressed to him how I'd like to be touched. When I would try to show him how I like to be touched, he would get so angry. Thoughts started to flood my brain, right? My mind. Confusion of not knowing if I was the child or not, from that vision in the 4th session with Mother Ayahuasca. I was flooded with emotions and anger. I just started to feel this fire, this really strong upsetness. I was sick and tired of my body being mistreated. I was sick and tired of my body being touched in ways that were not of love. And as the tears fell down my face and onto the floor, I silently told myself I was sick of it and I would not allow it anymore. And that I would be with someone who touched me with love, made love to me with love. Eventually, I had the awareness while in this asana that these were emotions stuck in my hips. All these thoughts and emotions that were coming up, they were stuck there. They had been stored there. I was aware enough to see the theme coming up for myself, the healing theme, as I already knew I had suffered trauma from past relationships. But I did not know until Mother Ayahuasca that I may have repressed childhood memories and past life memories. I had 2 more significant sessions with Mother Ayahuasca, and these happened after I had the experiences in yoga school. In one of the sessions of the last 2, she kept showing me information. I saw that child's room again, and I sat there in space, kind of just in nothingness, looking down at this room. And I asked myself and whoever might be listening, why am I still seeing this room? Whose room is it? By this time, I had been communing with Mother Ayahuasca for 7 to 8 months. And I kept wondering if it was a sibling or another member of the circle, the circle who drank the tea. And I kept wondering if it was a past life, so that's why I asked. When I asked this question this time in this session while looking at the room, I heard a voice respond immediately. You know it was you. We have shown you many times. It's time to face this and face him. This voice came in. It was strong and firm, but not scary. And it was loving, but firm, because I needed to hear it. And I knew who they were talking about when they said him. I knew they were referring to Mr. X. And so after that session, literally after that session, when I walked out, I found my phone and I contacted him. I sent him a message. I told this person that I know what happened and that I didn't want to fight about it, but that I want peace. That I really want peace so that I can heal and move on, and I wanted peace and healing for him too. Well, this person told me he didn't know what I was referring to, but he seemed very defensive. And this would be the first of quite a few attempts to address what happened. And pretty much every time I have addressed this person, he continues to deny it, which that can be frustrating and hard for a person who is trying to heal and move on. So often we do want the person to say, I'm sorry, to admit what they've done, to take responsibility, to help you with your closure, right? But I'm here to let you know that sometimes that's just not going to happen. And yes, get it out of your system. It's okay to be frustrated and angry and upset that the person doesn't want to take responsibility. But there will come a point in time where you're going to have to tell yourself that it's time to move on, that you can move on without their apology. And that's what I had to do, because I just wasn't going to get it. There was one last session with Mother Ayahuasca that was related to my childhood trauma that was repressed. And it was also pretty scary, which I don't normally say that experiences with Mother Ayahuasca can be scary. But it was scary because I tried to fight it. What I started to sense and see and feel, it was uncomfortable. And if you don't go with the flow and you try to fight, that's your ego kicking in. So yeah, your experience is not going to be pleasant if you do that. And that's kind of what happened with me. I was trying to let go as much as possible, but it was still pretty scary. Basically, after I drank the tea, the terror, it settled in pretty quickly. She hit me pretty quickly. About 10-15 minutes after I drank her, I started to feel stuff. It's as I listened to the Mestre chant, the vibrations of the song took me into a swirling cloud of this gray darkness, and I saw his face. I saw Mr. X's face, the man who had molested me. It was also pretty confusing because within this cloud I also saw the face of a man that I was talking to. We weren't in an actual relationship. We weren't physical or anything. I was still celibate. But we were interested in one another and would keep contact via phone. He lived in a different country. But his face was in there swirling around. And it bothered me. But it made sense because I was starting to notice, once again, the same energy that I had experienced with other men in the past. I didn't like the feelings I was experiencing, to be honest. Confusion, fear. And I began to feel my stomach bubble, and energy began moving upwards into my throat. I knew I was going to vomit. And unlike my other sessions, somehow I was able to move my body and run to a bathroom, where I had a very, very trippy experience. Once I was in the bathroom, I remember bending over the toilet to vomit. And when I would do that, I'd lose awareness of my body in the physical realm. I'd shoot out of my body and into nothingness. And then next thing you know, I'd shoot back into my body. And when I would come into my body, I was disoriented. My vision was of a toilet and toilet water. And I was gagging. And I didn't understand why I was over a toilet. I didn't understand why I was in a bathroom. And I momentarily forgot who I was. I momentarily forgot my name. I didn't understand why I was even human. I was in terror that I was in the physical form and that I was a human being. And then I heard myself saying, "Oh my God, you're human. You're human. Remember, you came to planet Earth. You came to planet Earth to help. It's okay." And then I'd freak out and go, no, why am I here? I don't want to be here. I don't like it here. There's so much darkness. There's so much fear and pain. And then I'd shoot out of my body again. And then I'd come back into my body, and the same thing would happen. I'd freak out and try to figure out who I was and why I was there. And I'd have to tell myself, everything's okay. You're human and you're here to help. And a part of me was like, no, why did I do this? Why did I come? So this happened about 2 or 3 times. And then I stood up and I sat on the toilet and tried to go, because it's like I could feel the energy wanting to come out. And once again, I like lost consciousness or lost awareness of being human. I would leave my body. And I could just see, at this point, I could see Mr. X's face just like swirling. And it was so disturbing to me. And then I'd open my eyes and realize I'm human, I'm on the toilet, and I need to purge. And then I had this knowing or wondering of what happened to my private parts. And my butt, like I was wondering if something had happened to me anally. And I remember being so upset and jumping out of my body again, and then coming back into my body and trying to be present with myself and let myself know that, where I am, why I'm there, and that I'm purging this energy of being molested, of being used, abused, taken advantage of. After that, I was able to splash water on my face and kind of breathe and calm myself down. And I didn't go immediately back into session. I had to sit outside in this lobby area in the dark and listen to nature to help ground me. But one of the members, gently told me to go back in, because within the room where the ceremony was taking place, there was light, and that I would be safe there. And I understood her, that I knew she was trying to let me know that if I could just get back into the room where everybody else was, that I would be in sacred space where energy is transmuted. Certain practices are done to keep the space clear and circulating so that things that are coming up from us are being transmuted, right? And so I did that, and that definitely helped. But that was the last experience with Mother Ayahuasca where she showed me that something happened to me when I was a child. After these experiences with Mother Ayahuasca and the 2 experiences in yoga school, I knew enough to where I had to accept the possibility that this really happened to me. And you may be saying, what possibility? What do you mean? And yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, even after all that, I still wasn't sure. I was still in doubt. I didn't want to accept that this had happened to me. But by this time, I knew something had happened, or that I was carrying the memory of someone, that something happened, and I had to at least accept that. And I had to accept all these emotions that were coming up from within me, and it was hard. It was really hard. The owner and manager of the healing retreat still expected me to fulfill my duties at the center, and I couldn't anymore because I had to take care of myself. I really needed to take care of myself, and I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know who to talk to. I tried reaching out to a few people there, and it's like, I don't know, it was really strange. I've noticed that when you are trying to heal from sexual trauma, not a lot of people want to help. It's like, it's so weird, even within the healing community, and especially within religious organizations. This subject gets tiptoed around. One woman I went to was a therapist, and I told her that I had repressed memories come up, and she made it seem like she would sit down with me and talk with me, but she just seemed so lighthearted about it, like it was no big thing, and just didn't really seem concerned, didn't ask how I was doing, and she kept forgetting to actually sit down with me. That never happened, right? It never did, let me tell you. I confided in a few people, and it's like, I don't know, I didn't fully get any support or help. I just knew that I needed to get out of there and figure it out myself. That I was not going to be able to dedicate myself to this center and other people because I needed myself most. So I left, and I returned to southern Indiana and began to seek in prayer and with intention on how to heal from this and go further and retrieve more memory and information so that I would be sure, and not wonder, but have no doubt that it was me that it had happened to. And this is in the beginning of 2016. This is around January or February. That's when I returned to southern Indiana and began to soul search and pray and do research. Even then, it was so much work. That's 2016, and we're now in 2019, the end of 2019. So it's been 3 years of inner work, mostly by myself, but also with the help of my partner. I met him in April of 2016, and when I met him, it just catapulted both of us into intense healing and purging and soul integration for both of us and our traumas. But aside from meeting him, I also was able to find a past life regressionist who was trained by the School of Edgar Cayce, so I was immediately happy when I found her, that she was in my area. And I went to one session with her, and it was pretty profound as well. In that session, I was able to actually see a very short memory of myself around the age of 5, right after one of the experiences where I had been, taken advantage of. And that was enough for me. At that time, it was definitely enough for me to know, wow, okay, it did. This did happen to this body. And that was really upsetting. And we can dive deep into modalities and paths on how to heal trauma, okay? I'm sharing my experiences, but all of these different experiences can be looked into deeper. I want to be able to share at least my story with you so that you know my backstory before we begin diving into everything surrounding trauma and the imbalance of the masculine and the feminine. But this past life regression was very helpful, and it was one of the things that helped me in healing and trying to figure it out. Another thing was I had healing from a starseed brother who channeled some light language for me and gave me some guidance. I also was called to pranic healing and became certified, and that has helped me. I also realized I needed to go deeper in my body work. So getting back into yoga and really breathing into these places within my body that are storing memory and information. And Mother Ayahuasca had told me that I needed to have my spine worked on, that I needed to work on my alignment. And so I also began going to a chiropractor to slowly get my spine back into alignment. And that's another huge story, but because of trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, my alignment, I was really out of place, and I still am. This is still a journey. I've made a lot of progress with my body since 2018. That's when I began my chiro work. Tongue twister there. And a lot of it has just been inner work and divine guidance and really sitting with my shadows, and also a lot of, like I said, soul integration and past life information too. Once I met my partner, a lot of past life information came up and continued to come up and still comes up at times. And that weaves into it all and into the story of the collective and the trauma that's been experienced in the collective. It's been a really, really, really long journey, hard journey, painful, and I've had a lot of ups, I've had a lot of downs, and I've just experienced parts of myself that I never knew existed, really traumatized, hurt parts of myself, scared aspects of myself, the really frightened and traumatized Trina, 5-year-old Trina. I've experienced her. I've experienced the really powerful version of me. In that 4th session, the scariest one of all, and the first one that showed me what was going on, in that session, when I was scared, and I told the guides that I didn't want to see it anymore, and I was like, please bring light, because all I kept saying was darkness, and I just felt like I was being swallowed by darkness. I said, please bring light, please. And nobody came. And nobody said anything. And I continued to freak out. And then I just stopped for a moment. I just stopped freaking out. And then I heard a voice say, no, we will not bring the light because you are the light. And then I saw my form. I saw one of my divine forms. And I saw myself rise up and sit up really tall, sitting but really tall with a straight back, straight spine, and this headdress, this crown above my head. And that moment is the main reason why I named my podcast what it is. It's a huge reason why. This is called She of the Throne. From me seeing one of my forms, one of my incarnations, and knowing and remembering that I am a truly powerful being. I am a truly powerful being. Even though I experienced some really dark shit, I experienced some really painful stuff, it doesn't invalidate me. And I'm here. I'm here on planet Earth again. And I remember who I am. And I'm here. I'm here to help planet Earth once again. I'm here to share this story to empower others and help others become empowered again and remember their divinity, to remember their power, to use their power for good, and to help people heal so that we can shift planet Earth as it is already, right? But we need to continue to raise the consciousness of the human race. And the way to do that is for each and every one of us to dive into ourselves and to heal all the areas within, all the fragmented aspects of self. To heal the fragmented aspects of self. To come back into harmony with ourself, our true nature. To come into harmony, our masculine and our feminine within. And when we do that, it manifests outwardly, right? And your relationship with your partner will reflect the harmony that you have within yourself, that your partner has within him or herself. And this will shift the dynamic on the planet in a huge way. Children will be raised in homes where there is harmony and balance, spiritual maturity, emotional intelligence, higher consciousness, right? It will shift everything, and we'll be breaking away from the old paradigm, the old way of being. But it starts with us and on healing these fragmented aspects of self. And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised that you actually may be fragmented in some way. So I share my story, beautiful people, not for you to feel sorry for me or for you to wallow and go back into your past, because no, this is the new moon, right? New moon energy, it's all about the new and creating new beginnings, setting intentions. So I invite you to feel empowered by my story. I invite you to set intentions that will help you heal on your journey and help you come more into alignment with your true nature. With this new moon energy, this dark new moon energy, I sat with it and I asked for divine guidance and if there was any sound healing to come forth. And there was. So I have a treat for you all that I didn't expect. If you would like to participate, if you would like to listen, I have a sound healing here on healing and bringing light and love to the fragmented aspects of ourself. Okay, and this is huge and we'll get into this later. But this sound healing is to clear out distortions within the mind as well, and bring more harmony and integration. So I hope you enjoy it. And regardless, I hope that you enjoyed this episode, although it wasn't very pleasant. It was more, when I say enjoy, I mean like, I hope that you appreciate my openness and vulnerability in sharing this. And I hope it empowers others to speak up and to seek their healing. If you would like to reach out, please do so. Like Aurora sings, here's to my queendom. Like, I want to create a space for women to heal. So I just want you to know that you're not alone. You're not alone out there. And I know how hard it is. I know how hard it can be, or how hard it was. And I've come a very long way from that time in 2015 when I found out what happened. But I still have my moments. I still have moments of fear. I have moments of doubt, or I have moments where I'm scared to be intimate with my partner. I have moments of just even speaking about it. And there are moments, but it's easier now than it was then. You know, I've come a long way, and it's still a journey. Like, I'm still working on my body. There's still a lot to be released from my body, and that goes even further and deeper. You know, with plant medicines and with body work, just healing in general, you will start to notice that you are not only healing for yourself, you're healing for your ancestors, you're healing for your bloodline, your family, and the collective. So it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, you guys and ladies. It gets deeper and deeper. But I'm here to let you know that you're not alone and you can do it. It is possible. It is possible to heal. It's possible to love yourself and to love others and to be in relationship again. It is possible to pick yourself up and to continue on and get strong again and find yourself again. And not only that, to align with your true nature, not the mask that was created, the identity that was created for you, but your true nature, your true divine nature. It is possible. Well, beautiful souls, we will dive in so much and into so much in the upcoming episodes. If you have a suggestion, if you have a question, anything, please, I encourage you to reach out. You can leave a comment. You can email me. I'll leave all my contact information. But because, you know, I want to create this podcast for you all. I have a lot that I want to share in other episodes, right? I have a lot. There's a lot to cover, just a lot. But if there is anything that's not on that list, like if you turn something in, if you email me with a suggestion, I will make sure to cover it. So please write me. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of She of the Throne. And I hope that you enjoy the sound healing that I channeled on this new moon in Libra, September 28th. Be blessed. Namaste. Itaku Yosin. Aloha nui.